Humans have been creating versions of ourselves for thousands of years. Paintings, sculptures, puppets, dolls. We've always had a fascination, desire to see ourselves reflected in something that we make. But there is a line, a point where the fascination suddenly becomes terror, when something looks human but not quite enough. It provokes a feeling deep inside us, a sickening sense that we're looking at something that wants to be human but isn't. Today, lady and ma'am, we are of course talking about the Uncanny Valley. The Uncanny Valley is a phenomenon that has haunted the minds of psychologists, roboticists, and artists for decades. The term itself was coined by Japanese roboticist Mashiro Mori in the 1970s. Mori observed that as robots and artificial beings were made to look more human, they became increasingly appealing, until they became too close, almost perfect. That's when people's reactions took a sharp plunge, where fascination became revulsion and the human mind recoiled. Mori called this space between human and inhuman the Uncanny Valley. It's best described on this graph here. The terrifying feeling becomes even stronger when we look at dolls and toys made for children. Have you ever seen a child's doll that has been left sitting alone in a dark room, and you swear its eyes watch as you open up that private tab for the 5th time that day? How many of you have felt that strange, unshakable sensation that these toys are hiding something? Studies show that people react to dolls, mannequins, and robots with expressions that are close to human, but slightly off with a sense of dread. It's as if deep down, we fear that these figures aren't just empty objects, that something else, something beyond understanding is happening behind those eyes. And I think this is where the fear intensifies. Think about this. If something inhuman is imitating a human, does it mean that it is trying to get closer to us? Could it be studying us, learning from us, waiting to become just lifelike enough to fool us? The more realistic it becomes, the harder it is to tell the difference, until one day we might just look into those eyes and not be able to tell. Is it human or something else? Something that's learned to wear the perfect disguise. It's not just limited to physical things either. The Uncanny Valley extends into digital characters, virtual assistants, and artificial intelligence. Take CGI characters in movies or video games, for example. When a character looks too realistic, too close to life, but it's not quite perfect, it disturbs us. Their movements are too smooth, their expressions too empty. It's as if they're puppets, animated by some invisible force, their strings moving just slightly out of sync with reality.
You young boys, Valdez. Are you a madman?
But as technology advances, these digital beings are only becoming more and more realistic. We are heading into a world where these almost human figures will surround us. Their expressions flawless, their voices rich and convincing, and who's to say we'll end up knowing what's real and what isn't? I think to understand the depth of the Uncanny Valley, we need to go back to the things that inspired it. Think of a mannequin staring at you with empty eyes in a darkened store, or a ventriloquist dummy with a painted smile stretched across its motionless face, or an android with pale, flawless skins, lips that move as it speaks, but eyes that remain dead, eyes that are staring at you but hold no soul. Why do these things disturb us? Well, psychologists have proposed several theories, and all of them are pretty unsettling. One of the most well-known theories is that we're seeing a distortion of ourselves, an almost human figure that hints at a dark reflection, something from which we instinctively recoil. Our brains tell us that this isn't right. An instinct flares up, warning us to stay away. Some scientists believe that this reaction could be rooted in our evolutionary past. Imagine our ancestors moving through dark forests, facing threats that they could barely comprehend. Maybe they encountered creatures or situations that looked almost human, yet dangerous. Creatures with distorted figures or decaying flesh, bodies that were twisted and lifeless. Our ancestors learned to fear these things, to avoid them at all costs. Perhaps the feeling we experience when we look at these not quite human things is genetic memory, a survival instinct from a time when failing to listen to that sense of wrongness could mean death. This theory would mean that at one point in our timeline, humans faced a threat of creatures that disguised themselves as other humans, but weren't quite real looking enough. And our brain has hardwired instincts not to trust them, which is honestly an absolutely terrifying thought. And I suppose it makes sense with the urban legends like the skinwalkers that this could have actually been a real thing. And what about zombies? I mean, the Walking Dead that have terrified cultures for centuries, figures that resemble humans but move stiffly with empty expressions. It's as if something else is animating them, pulling their strings from somewhere beyond. The zombie is the ultimate figure of the Uncanny Valley, a creature that walks and looks human but has lost its life. The walking corpse reminds us of something terrible, something we all face but dread: death. The Uncanny Valley forces us to confront that horrifying boundary between being alive and being dead. Here's a terrifying thought. Maybe our reaction to Uncanny Valley isn't just about survival. Some believe it could be a warning about boundaries. Boundaries between what is human and what should never be. Think of all the tales, ancient and modern, that warn of imitating life. Dr. Frankenstein, who created a creature in his own image only to watch it become a nightmare. Or the ancient myths of golems, clay creatures brought to life who inevitably turned on their creators. It's as if there's something deeply wrong, deeply forbidden about making something that imitates humans too well. Some scientists believe that one day the Uncanny Valley might disappear, that our brains will adjust to lifelike robots and digital humans, that we'll grow used to sharing our world with things that aren't technically human. But what if that's exactly what these figures want? What if the valley is our mind's way of keeping a protective distance, a way to remind us some things don't belong among us? And then there's the most disturbing theory of all. The idea that the Uncanny Valley is a signal, a boundary like a warning light. Something that doesn't belong in this world is trying to cross over, to get close, and our minds are warning us. Some even believe that each time we create a lifelike figure, whether it's a doll or a mannequin or an android, we are opening a doorway that lets in something from the other side. Something that wants to wear our face, to move in our world. Something that needs to learn how to be human. Maybe it's already here, hiding behind the glass eyes of mannequins and dolls, or within the expressions of the digital avatars that we create every day. Take a moment right now to look around you. Think about the objects in your life that imitate us. The doll on the shelf or the lifelike statue in the garden. The digital assistant that learns from your behavior. Does it look back at you? Does it learn from you? Is it watching, waiting, inching closer, learning exactly how to mimic you? Like, share, comment, subscribe.